Oi oi people, Silky here, and you're listening to the Lifer Musician Podcast, a podcast exploring the minds of creatives who've dedicated their lives to pursuing a career in music. The Lifer Musician Podcast is brought to you by Hookins Management, my artist services company that empowers our fellow DIY musicians to grow a monetised fan base without a record label. We offer a range of services such as online marketing, artist mentorship, release campaign management, videography, photography, graphic and website design, plus tons more useful services that are built to cater for independent musicians on small, self-funded budgets. You know, the next thing I have on my notes is Facebook advertising, which has been, you know, the mothership, isn't it? You know,
the backbone of the whole operation.
Yeah. So I'd done some Facebook ads for States of Emotion and spent about $1,000 of our budget and not got very far of it at all. And I know what I was doing wrong now. I was going like way too broad with the targeting. I was throwing everything in there: U2, Kasabian, Coldplay, Radio X, Kerrang. It was fucking ridiculous.
And your audience,
massive broad audience.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand if you're not trained at doing Facebook marketing, and you just follow the basic instructions that Facebook gives you and encourages you to do as a page owner, it's a very easy mistake to make. And I've wasted about $1,000 trying to make that work for States of Emotion. So I tried it before and it hadn't worked. But then for my car valeting business, I'd gone a lot more. I'd tried Facebook advertising for that and hit the ground running. Niched it down to my local area in Brentwood, and niched the age down, and got like really great results from it, like from the get-go, and pretty much built a client base for my mobile car valeting round really quickly through ploughing a bit of money into Facebook ads. And so I was about a year or so maybe into that business at this point in my life, and we've made this music video for Rickety Old Train, the first Def Guitar Pop single. And I said to you, should we just have a punt?
So the conversation starts, should we apply these methods to a music video? Literally as simple as that. Geography, age, all these different demographics, so we're kind of chatting away, aren't we, and working out, well, who's going to like this? And we've got a pretty good idea because we're, not emulating madness, but we're feeling hugely inspired and paying huge homage to it. And so, do you want to talk more about demographics and that?
So it was literally just targeting. I'd learnt the detailed targeting, and I think I said to you, mate, we can literally hit fans of the Specials and Madness. Yeah. Should we give it a go for £100 and see if it works, And it was like instant, wasn't it? So I think we did £100 over a month.
Which was scary at first.
Yeah, man.
No, we weren't, neither of us really had I know it sounds ridiculous, but we didn't have £100, like. No,
I mean, just, like anyone just struggling to pay the rent and bills every month, and, so we had a punt, did £100 over a month, and instantly that ad, like, yielded really good results. I remember being in my car valeting van, and the ad had been live like 24 hours, and I pulled up to grab a coffee or something, and this message come through on Facebook, and it was a guy in Stoke or something, and he was like, "This is the best band I've heard in 20 years. I've been waiting for this since the Specials," or something like that. And I was like, fucking hell. The irony as well, after all that with States of Emotion, that like, wow, shit, it's working. Finally, that conversion that, we were talking about earlier, we couldn't get from throwing, couple of grand at radio and getting on Radio 1 and things like that. A real music fan out there has picked it up and has taken the time to send us a message and go, fucking hell, this is the best thing I've heard in 20 years. And that just kept happening, didn't it? And people were asking for an album, and this ad just took off. And so that kind of was the start for me personally, and I'm sure probably the same for you, where it was like you know, there's something in
Something's
this.
happening
Yeah,
here.
maybe there is a potential career here. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Not
And
as
I think
in
the
like
conversations at that point would have been a lot about spending money. And this is always the scariest thing at the beginning of any project, and the scariest thing for lots of artists or DIY artists, because, you know, money isn't easy to come by, is it?
No,
you know,
of
if you're
course
making
not.
music all the time, you're normally doing a job that sort of enables you to continue making music on a daily basis. And normally those jobs are probably not the best paying jobs. And, you know, we got to a point where I literally remember me and you sat in that summer house talking to each other like, how much are you going to have at the end of this month, disposable income? And it's like, I'll probably have like 180 quid. Right. If you put 180 quid in, I'll put 180 quid in.
Yeah.
Let's keep going with this ad.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just kept happening. And the more we put in, the more we were seeing these results, getting these beautiful messages from, you know, people all up and down the country saying, it's the best thing I heard since Madness. I haven't felt like this since Two Tone began, and all this amazing thing. So that was kind of, it was like the cause and effect was just perfect. So it got to a point, where we were like, you know, if we can, you know, put some serious money into this advertising, we can really grow something here. And then I suppose that's where the conversations will have begun for the next point, where we were like,
the crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd been doing it for a few months. So we, like Johnny said, we started on 100 quid, and then we started to up it because it was exciting, and we thought this has got legs. You know, we could actually grow a fan base, monetize it, maybe actually get some people down to a show if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And that was enough, wasn't it, for us to sacrifice what we could afford, to try and grow it and you know, pursue it a little bit more seriously than just a couple of guys having fun writing music in a random summer house in Essex, and actually get it out to the world. So yeah, a lot of people were asking for an album from the get-go. And a friend of mine, two friends of mine actually, shout out to Elliot Warren, who's an actor. He'd used Indiegogo, the crowdfunding platform, to fund a play that he'd written, and it was really successful. And another friend of ours as well, Darren Connet, had self-funded his debut solo album on Indiegogo as well. So I reached out to those two fellas and just picked their brains a little bit about it, and they were massively helpful. And I thought, like, crowdfunding's got to be the route for us, really, because you know, we're not looking. We there was never any desire to pursue a record label or anything like that.
No.
We just liked that we were building something organic with fans. There was a few hundred people, super fans, that were asking for a record, and we just, you know, put two and two together.
Well, we felt like cut out the middleman. We can give the album straight to someone. We don't need anything bigger than that. I think just as we're going to get into crowdfunding, it's quite important to say as well is I don't know where this mentality comes from, but I think we both had it at the start, was the sort of being nervous to ask people for money before giving them anything. So essentially crowdfunding is you're giving people pre-orders, aren't you? They're trusting you to say, if you give us 15 quid in advance, we promise that we're going to have this album to you within 18 months or whatever. And I think at first there was definitely a bit of reluctance in there to, are we begging, or are we?
Yeah, you're worried you're going to come across like cap in hand, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you have to get over that.
From a point of your sort of self-preservation, you might not feel great about doing that. And secondly, you know, you don't want to piss people off, basically.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we'd read a lot about, we started getting into what is crowdfunding, because I'd heard about it, but I hadn't read about it a great deal. And do you want to talk a little bit more about sort of artists we'd looked at beyond our sort of friendship group, and how successful and important crowdfunding was becoming in not just the music industry but all sorts of arts?
Sure thing. So I mean, like, obviously now we're working with DIY musicians all the time and helping them with their careers, applying the same methods that we have. It often comes up when we get down to like, okay, it's time to push for an album release now. You should crowdfund. A lot of artists have insecurities about, is it a bit desperate though? And that's what you do when you can't, get a record label or whatever. And it always happens. And there was definitely, as you say, we had our own insecurities about it. And it's always a bit of a mental hurdle for artists. And I always say, go and check out the TED Talk by Amanda Palmer, who's in the Dresden Dolls, I believe was the band. And they were signed to Roadrunner, and 25,000 odd people bought the album. Roadrunner weren't happy with that and wanted to drop the band. And she went independent and did her own project and decided to launch a campaign on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And ended up raising over $1 million. And it was about 25,000 fans that backed her and raised the $1 million. And her TED Talk is fucking awesome. Like, she will...
when you sent that to me around that time, and it was a real game changer, I think, for my sort of mentality with regards to... Yeah, man. And Ari Herstand as well, that wrote the book How to Make It in the New Music Business, which is another awesome resource for any independent musician that's listening. And following Ari on social media as well, his Twitter, his Instagram, and that is definitely a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, he's awesome. Listening to his book was a big turning point for me. He describes it as an ask economy is what musicians are in now, and you've got the old school mainstream music industry, but you've now also got the sort of what he refers to as the new music business, where there's so many more opportunities for independent creators to market and monetize and build a nice income for themselves. And he describes that sector of the music industry, or section of the music industry, as like an ask economy, where you're transparent with your fans about them funding your career, and you give them the opportunity to pay and break down why, beyond buying this cool hoodie, like, what that means for us. It means we can make another record or go on tour this month.
A word you just said there, which is so important, which is something, again, we're going to cover loads in this, is transparency. And like that for us, like straight up after, listening to this TED Talk and thinking, okay, we're going to go ahead with a crowdfunder, but there's nothing stopping you from asking your audience what they'd think if you did that. And then you get to hear their results firsthand. Your market research now doesn't have to be done by some company. You've got, you can talk to your audience at any time through Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. And what you've got to remember is your audience are smart. They're smart, and they want to be successful along with you. They want to be on this journey with you. And being transparent with them at all times is what, we've always tried to do, haven't we? We've never tried to hide anything from our audience.
Never.
And I think that's the most important thing, to be honest. Yeah, for me, I think that was a bit of a turning point as well, because I feel like up until that point, you're always trying to project an image of like cool and infallibility, and that you're being really successful.
Yeah,
when you're
being
not.
More successful than what you actually are.
And that's not cool, is it?
It's
that's
bollocks,
uncool. It's bollocks, and people see right through it anyway. And as soon as you can sort of, shake that particular monkey off your back, I feel like it was quite freeing for me. I mean, you've always been better than me at that anyway, being able to be a lot more open to people that, you'd never met before or whatever. Whereas, I think that was a bit of a turning point for me to sort of add this layer of honesty and transparency into what we were doing, I think.
Yeah, so, it was, like a humbling process. But people like that, you know what I mean? Like, we're in this era now where, all brands have kind of been humanized, haven't they? Like, it just, to try and give the impression, again, it's that going back to that thing of making it, trying to look like you're on a major label, even though you're not, like, but even now, major labels, they want their artists to just be out there and warts and all. If you look at like a major label artist like Lewis Capaldi, You know, he's built a lot of his profile from just being a fucking legend on social media, isn't he? You know, and being a laugh and so
I mean, Liam Gallagher's comeback was built off the back of his Twitter and his Instagram and stuff.
Exactly. So definitely check out Amanda Palmer's TED Talk about crowdfunding. It's a game changer, that one. And like I say, whenever I sit down with an artist and they've got these insecurities about crowdfunding or paid fan club models and stuff, I'm like, check that TED Talk out, and it, you know, always it always kind of gives them a different
opens your eyes
outlook on it, and they're comfortable to go ahead and do it once they've seen that TED Talk.
Greetings, listeners. Jake from Decent Mastering here. Really pleased to be involved with a podcast whose ethos aligns with my own, helping independent artists. My Pay What You Feel mastering service offers inclusivity to music creators with tighter budgets, giving quality audio at a price that suits them. To get in contact, send an email to decentmastering@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram @decentmastering. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, so we crowdfund the album summer 2017. We do a 2-month campaign on Indiegogo, and it goes well. We raised about $7,000 in the end, wasn't it? So. And that was only a couple of hundred people, a couple of hundred backers, you know. So, but that was enough to that was enough to cover the raw costs of making the album, and that was great. That was such a buzz to see it monetized that quickly, you know.
To think that 200 people cared that much, and
it
was the very first time where we were sort of. It was like the embryonic stages of what we would now call like our blueprint for an album cycle. Yeah. And there's still aspects of that first crowdfunding campaign that we would refer back to now, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. And it was like, I think the thing at the time I was most excited about was like, well, cool. Like, as long as we do a good job and deliver this album and the fans enjoy it, we can always make an album now and it won't cost us any money. Do you know what I mean? Like, the fans will back it, and we've got this little sort of die-hard following of people, and we can create now and get in the studio without that financial burden hanging over for the raw costs of the album. So that was a big breakthrough moment, and it started to turn into a business slowly at that point, I think. And then around the same time, we'd been asked a lot, like we had, about an album, when you guys playing live. And we'd booked a show at a venue called the Oslo in London and put it on sale, around the same time as when the crowdfunder launched in the summer. The gig was in December. And we started selling tickets, didn't we? I think we'd done like maybe 20 or 30 in the first month, and fuck me, there's someone from like Ireland bought a couple of tickets and shit, and we were like, wow, we don't know these people. Like, this ain't like friends and family. Like, people are buying tickets for 15 quid to see our show. So that was a buzz, wasn't it?
At this point as well, we didn't even have a live band, a live lineup. You know, we had a band that we'd been using in the studio. But like our producer
was mainly playing, Mitch.
Which was mainly Mitch, yeah. Big up King Mitch. So he was on drums, bass. I think Bonsai had come in and done some bass at that point. But
kazoo.
Yeah. The frog woodblock. So it was all starting to look like a proper band all of a sudden, and we started to take it really seriously, didn't we? As we were seeing this the whole time, this ad's running and it's getting bigger and bigger, and the sort of numbers on Facebook and fans actually interacting with us is getting more and more there's more and more doing so. And so we were getting to a point where we've got an album on the way, and we know we've sold so many copies because people have essentially pre-ordered it through the crowdfunding campaign. And we're also seeing these tickets for our first show sell, thinking, well, our first show is gonna probably sell out here. We're getting closer and closer. It was 4 years yesterday, that show. And yeah, I mean, it was a special moment, wasn't it? Because we'd been together making music videos, and trying to grow this thing for a year before we even played a live show. And we're quite big believers in that sort of method, aren't we, really? There's no point playing to 20 people in the what's your normal go-to pub name? The Dog and Parrot or something?
Yeah, the Muck Gigs. I mean, look, you got to do that shit whilst you're still learning your craft as a performer. But yeah, we paid our dues already at that point.
We had about 30 years experience between us at that point.
Yeah, man. So the album was successfully crowdfunded, which was really inspiring. And then the first show happened in December at the Oslo, and a week before that, the album come out, I believe. And yeah, the gig was packed. There was about 220 people in there, and it was 80% organic fans, not friends and family. And it just felt special. We sold a lot of merchandise. There were people waiting outside the venue when we were loading in for sound check that wanted photos and wanted to buy merch early and that, and it was cool, man. We'd never had that in all the years that we'd been grafting away in bands.
People singing the songs back at us as well, and I don't think I'd never had that before. Unless it was my mum singing them, you know what I mean?
I mean, it was a really special night. You know, up there for me still was one of my favourite ever experiences, you know. I guess, so the next thing I've got down would have been early the following year, was forming a company, a limited company for the band, and the shift in mindset, you know, viewing our band not just as a musical project, but also as a business. And we formed the company in April 2018, was it?
April 2018,
yeah. And just sort of, I guess whilst this was all happening, you know, I'd been going down a rabbit hole. I'd wound down my car valeting business shortly after the first show, so the end of 2017. And our drummer, Luke, bless him, gave me a job as a decorator. And I decided that because we could see all that potential in it, and I've been doing a lot of research, you know, podcasts, books, online seminars and stuff about entrepreneurship and music business and that. I was back. I was back in the headspace to pursue a music career, and so I took this job on with a drummer, Luke, as a decorator, and wound down the car valeting business so that I could didn't have the burden of running my own business anymore. I could just go and do my day job, get home at a decent hour, and then crack on in the evening with my research and marketing the band and everything. We very much, and then we formed the company in that first quarter of 2018, and our mindset shifted, didn't it? And that has been very empowering, isn't it?
And I think our discussions at that time were changing from being sort of solely about it as a band and thinking of the band as a vehicle for business. And we'd be talking probably for the first time, you know, in our lives, me and you would just, you know, normally spend our evenings talking about Stone Roses till God knows what hour. We were discussing, you know, a Robert Kiyosaki book or something like that, and starting to take, you know, the sort of financial mechanics of the band or the business just as seriously as we were taking the art, because we knew from what had happened in the previous year that taking those financial mechanics seriously enabled us to make more art than we'd ever been able to make in a year. And the two things are mutually exclusive, whether people like it or not. It's impossible to make an album without money, and it's certainly impossible to get your album out to a lot of people without money. So you have to take both things as seriously as each other, don't you, the whole time. And it was a massive shift in mindset for me, I know, at that time. There is this, like, particularly in guitar music culture, there's this like entitled attitude that I was definitely guilty of,
where you just think, well, you know, I'm the artist, like, you know, I'm the fucking rock star, I'll make the music and the business bods will take care of that. And it's why so many great artists get fucked over and don't realise their potential and have the
their
popularity.
Their worth as well.
Yeah, exactly. And don't...
I think you owe it to yourself as an artist to make sure you understand what your worth is.
Yeah.
And not let someone else tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that shift in mindset has been really the difference in all of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
And has led to us sort of building this successful independent artist business. So yeah, that was a huge moment. And just the I don't know, like the starting a limited company and making it official.
So just about that, we'd just the process of going into Metro Bank in Romford, me and Silky, you know, Fred Perry'd up to the eyeballs with a business plan in our hands and talking to the bank manager and explaining our business plan to him, and him saying, yeah, boys, you know, here's a business account. And
he was a cool guy.
It was a real moment, wasn't it? And getting the first docs back from Company's House, like of incorporation and stuff like that. I think that sort of, it forces you to take it seriously, doesn't it? It's like, we were saying it about getting decent microphones for the podcast, weren't we?
Doing it properly.
If you're going to do it, and it forces you to take it seriously.
It does, yeah. For sure, man.
And that definitely did that for us, didn't it? All of a sudden, we'd like, oh, we can't mess this up now. Let's keep this trajectory going in the same direction.
Yeah, and the driver, as I'm sure so many musicians will relate to, was just like, we didn't want to do a fucking mundane day job that wasn't our passion, you know? Like, a big driver for most artists is, you know, we're passion-driven people. It ain't about like making as much money or, you know, getting the best paycheck out there, you know, as quickly as possible. It's about wanting to do more of this. Do you know what I mean? And do as much of this as possible. So that you because we love this process. It's so fulfilling, and you need to adopt that business and marketing mindset as well as the artistic mindset, so that you know, they serve one another, and it gets you to.
Then there's the realization happens that there's just as much creativity and sort of creative happiness to be found in thinking up Facebook advertisements, for an example, or just what we've done with the Pucker Sounds campaign. I mean, we put just as much sort of creative brain power into that campaign as we have into the actual songs themselves, and you become addicted to that side of it the same way you're addicted to the songwriting.
Totally. Yeah, and it's your baby, and it's your it's cool. I mean, there's been a few times where we've been chatting to fans, you know, at gigs, and they've complimented the marketing like before they've complimented the music, and I find that just as flattering as someone saying that we wrote a great song or played a good show, because we put our fucking heart and soul into that marketing and buzz off of it, you know? So, yeah, man, it's cool. That shift in mindset was integral. So once that had happened, I'd read a digital marketing book called .com Secrets by a guy called Russell Brunson, I believe. And there was something about getting customers through the door monetized with like an entry level offer, and so I came up with this idea of doing what's called a free plus shipping offer on our signed CD debut album 69 Candy Street, which had been out for a few months at that point. So the concept is the customer just pays for the postage and packaging on the product. So rather than £12 plus shipping on the CD, it's $4.95 for the postage and packaging costs. And
essentially you're just as the business, you're happy to break even,
or maybe even lose a bit of
lose
money.
a little bit, which we probably were at that
times,
point, because there's such small runs on the CDs and stuff.
Yeah, when you factor in the production costs and stuff, it might be costing you £1 per fan, monetized fan through the door. Obviously, it's great to do it with CDs because CDs are cheap to produce and people still like buying that physical product. So it's win-win. But yeah, like if you think about it, it might cost you £1 per fan you're getting through the door. But if 1 in every 5 of those fans become super fans and spends £100 a year on your project every year through, a crowdfunding pledge, they might buy a hoodie, a vinyl, a concert ticket, and they do that for 10 years of your career, then, that £1 per customer that it's costing you is a good investment. So, but again, like before we understood this stuff, we'd see that as like, oh, it's costing us money to sell CDs. Negative thing, right? You're in the red. But
so there's that fear all the time.
Yeah.
All our conversations would revolve around, oh, we've got to be a bit brave here, haven't we?
Yeah.
Shall we be brave? And it's like the bullishness that sometimes I look back on it and I'm surprised at how bullish we were. Do you know what
brave,
I mean?
man. Yeah.
But yeah, there's always, with all these things, because especially it's the first time, wasn't it, as well? There was a fear, wasn't there, sort of underpinning all of it, and we managed to shake it off most times, didn't we?
I think every time.
Yeah,
every time, man. We did it. We just pushed forward. So this free plus shipping album offer, we were retargeting people that had viewed our music videos on Facebook with like a showreel ad, like an old school 90s album ad that you used to see with clips in the music videos, selling this free CD offer because it's a free album. You just pay for the shipping. That's the small catch. And we explained that in a very personal message on the Squeeze page. We're a DIY band. It was very, very conscious not to make that look like a label was trying to sell you something. It was like, we're a DIY band. We just need you to help cover some small costs towards this, but the RRP, you can have the CD. We don't need the £12. We just want to give you a chance to buy an album off us and get into it.
Yeah.
So that was a big turning point because it's like what you're doing there is you're building a monetized list of supporters, and that leads on to the importance of fan data collection and ownership, and that list. So initially it was the 197 odd people that backed the crowdfunding campaign and having all their details, email address, phone number, postal address, Facebook data, pixel data, which means we can do focused ads on Facebook and Instagram targeting those people. And that list, it started on 197 people that backed the first album. Then we got the data of the people that bought the tickets for the Oslo because the promoter was a friend of ours, and there was a thing where they signed up and were happy to share their data. The initial list was probably like 300 odd people, and then when we started doing this free plus shipping album offer, we noticed an instant spike and sold a few hundred extra copies. So we didn't know there was a fan base out there of people with like passive interest that hadn't bought anything at that point. But as soon as we presented them with an offer, they were in, and we sold a few hundred in the first week of doing that offer. And we still sell that offer now, even though we're 3 albums in. This is another thing that's unorthodox, and traditional labels would never do this. But we want to take, people on that listener journey and product journey for Death of Guitar Pop, and getting people through the door with that. Our most popular products as a band, that first album on CD, is a good place to start. So that's been a real turning point, and that list is now 5,000 strong, isn't it?
Yeah, and that concept of data collection has become like a real obsession for us, and there's pretty much every sort of major decision we make revolves around that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To the point where we're using certain software to sell our tickets for our tour now, because we want to retain the data of all of the people who buy tickets from us. Whereas if we're doing it through somewhere like Dice, we don't. Dice keeps that data.
Get the data, yeah. So they can promote their other shows.
You could sell 1,000 tickets for a tour, and all of those people who've shown that much interest in your band that you can then text them and email them every time you release a new single or a new T-shirt or whatever it might be, you're missing out on that. So that has become like a bit of an obsession for us, hasn't it?
Yeah. And
again, it gives you a connection with the fans, doesn't it?
And the fans like it. They like getting texts off of us, and
I like getting texts off my favourite band. So why? Yeah.
There's been phone calls and postcards and all sorts, but we'll get into that in a bit. So that was a big turning point. Building that list, offering like a heavily discounted product. And rather than just trying to capture email addresses like bands have traditionally done, whether fans are passively interested or super fans, like we were like, let's build a monetized list of people. And then we know that list of 5,000 is probably worth, it's the equivalent of having a 20,000-30,000 general email audience list, because those people bought some shit off you, So that was a big turning point. And then the next big turning point was crowdfunding the second album in March 2018. So
very quickly after the release.
Quick turnaround, rinse and repeat the cycle.
Make sure it's not a fluke.
Yeah, and we went over to Indiegogo, did a 2-month campaign, and raised about 11 grand, I think it was, wasn't it, for the second record? Yeah. So this thing's building. Then we launched.
We can see that clear progression, can't we?
Yeah. And then another pivotal moment in June 20. Oh, so just to follow on from the March 2018. Have I got that right? Did we? Oh no, I think we might have crowdfunded the second album in 2019, didn't we?
Was it 2019?
Yeah.
I have to double check that, mate.
I think it was. Sorry,
it came out. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, because it came out in
September 2019. Apologies. So we were building the 3+ shipping and out playing shows. We got booked to do Berlin and
because in the summer of 2018 we did the Sky Is the Bollocks video,
which is when we launched the 3+ shipping, when we launched that single, which was the first new single.
But we didn't know anything about the second album at that time. We just had another single, didn't we?
Exactly.
That was it.
So the crowdfunding, the second album was March 2019, and we raised 11 grand on that, and then we launched a pay monthly fan club in June 2019, and it was £3.60 a month, wasn't it, for a long time? We just put it up recently to £4.99. And that was kind of like a continuation of the crowdfunding support for the diehard super fans that wanted to buy more stuff off of us, wanted more experiences, like a monthly live chat with us, an exclusive thing, birthday messages. So we film a video birthday message for the members every year. Fan club Christmas drinks was a nice thing that we've done.
There's a fan club discount on merch and tour tickets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just essentially fostering the relationship we had with those super fans at this point,
family.
I suppose. The Dogby family,
and so that when fans sign up, they get like a merch pack and all those other perks and other bits and pieces that we haven't mentioned. So the fans love that because there's that intimate kind of club thing, and we're on a first name basis with pretty much everyone in that club,
which is a lovely thing.
But we've got right from the get-go we had a few hundred members, and that is a great way of creating like a recurring revenue for yourself as not just as an independent artist. I think I don't know why every artist isn't doing it, but it's particularly for DIY musicians, that money has been a godsend, and we're very clear about that with our audience, aren't we? Like, you're our financial lifeblood, paying that £3.60 every month and crowdfunding every year or so, and other bits and pieces. So the fan club model has been huge for us, and it's something that we're expanding all the time. Then this was a big project in December 2019. We did a Christmas single for the mental health charity Calm. And our friend from is an actor, famous for his role in The Inbetweeners as James Buckley. He collaborated with us on this project and filmed and starred in the music video. And we had our eyes on like trying to get in the Christmas charts.
Yeah, and would you say it's the first time since we'd started the band that we were kind of aiming for a more traditional sort of goal?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So hitting the Christmas single charts is, you know, that's something that every artist, I'm sure, wants to do.
Yeah, it was a little bit starry-eyed.
Yeah.
But we had a great concept for a video. We reenacted all the iconic music videos, which I'm pretty sure, I was reading something the other day, that Elton John and Ed Sheeran are doing for their Christmas single this year.
Oh, really?
So we're going to have to call them out on social media. Who wore it better? Elton and Ed or Silky and Top Cat? So, yeah, we had this great concept and there was a real, you know, the cause and you're doing it to raise money and awareness for the Calm charity was obviously very close to our hearts. But where we were sort of naive was, you know, the Christmas charts, the single charts in general for a guitar band is fucking hard to crack. But the Christmas single charts is a different ball game. You know, you got to sell
are just insane,
mad numbers to get like 5 times more than you usually would. And we put a hell of a lot of time, you know, and focus into this campaign all the way through the entirety of 2019.
Yeah.
And it culminated in a few thousand download sales, which got us in the official download charts at like number 26. But the project financially was massively in the hole. Where we went wrong was downloads are a terrible way to recoup money because, you know, there's peanuts. There's not a lot of money in an iTunes download by the time they've taken their commission.
Yeah, and we found that using iTunes to sell and Amazon to sell people downloads is a really clunky way of operating. It doesn't translate well. Obviously, it's much easier streaming things on Spotify these days, and even in 2019, downloading's an outdated model. Isn't it? Whereas CDs and vinyls carry they carry a different type of value because it's a physical product in someone's hands. We just found that using downloads as the backbone of a campaign was just a really poor way of doing it, really.
Definitely.
And I'd say for the first time since we'd started the band, it was where we'd set out to do something and failed.
Fallen way short. Yeah. I think, you know, on reflection, if we'd have got the thing was a label was actually going to put it out, wasn't it? So, which kind of goes against a little bit what we're saying, but it was a one-off thing with an indie label that were reputable and had Christmas number 1. So, you know, it made sense. And it was just for that one single. So we retained ownership of everything else we do. But yeah, that fell apart last minute, and then they ended up getting a Christmas number 1 that year. Yeah, which is a bit of a kick in the bollocks, but that was for a good cause. So fair play. But yeah. So we hadn't really had the time to sort it. Had we have known we were going to be doing it independently, we would have got physicals done. And that would have definitely probably doubled our sales. But even then, it would have been so hard to get in that top 40.
Yeah.
Because Christmas week is just a beast. But then, you know, at the end of it, we'd sold a few thousand downloads. And the positive to come out of it, I remember you and I having a sort of WhatsApp exchange saying, well, look, man, like at least we know for album 3, if we can sell a few thousand downloads, you know, on Christmas week of a single just on a download format, we're in with a shout at charting with our next album because, you know, we were aware at that point that 2,500 to 3,000 sales on an average week will get you in the top 40 album charts, you know. So that was a positive to take from that, and we learned a hell of a lot through the process of that campaign of like, you know, fucking smart URLs not working, downloads being a shit model, just different bits and pieces, you know, where we were able to take, you know, physicals and multiple formats being integral.
That was also a point as well where we were trying to find some sort of influence within mainstream media as well. So we were going to, you know, writing emails to 5 Live afternoon DJs and Soccer AM and all these different things. And again, sort of, not to belittle those things at all, they can all be really helpful, but they're not to be relied upon.
No.
And again, it just sort of reinforced that what we'd been doing with Facebook marketing was, you know, we were seeing concrete results every time. Yeah. And it felt like every other avenue we explored in terms of growing the band or the business or the brand or whatever it is, we weren't seeing those concrete results. Yeah. So we'd come back to the idea of, well, why would we put money into that when we know that Facebook advertising is helping us reach people who care about our band and care about what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was an important learning process for it, for us, wasn't it?
Massive.
The Christmas single.
And looking back on that, that was one of the most important sort of few months. There's a funny, we did our fan club chat, you know, I think the day after it came out or something like that. And it was me and you sat there looking like pretty dejected, to be honest, and pretty fucking knackered.
Sour pricks in fucking Santa hats.
Something like that, yeah. So, but yeah, I think we come into the new year like with lots of fresh new ideas, didn't we? And we weren't going to let the bastards grind us down.
Absolutely
that's for sure.
not, no. Oi people, Silky here, and we've reached the end of episode 2 of the Lifer Musician podcast. I hope you're enjoying the chat with Johnny Topcat Hick and I. Make sure you tune in to the next episode when it's released and check out part 3, the final part of how to achieve a top 40 album as an independent artist.